Writing, it helps us perform all sorts of activities every day.
It's easy to assume that writing's always been around, but like most things, it had to be invented. Have you ever written something down so you can remember it later on? Maybe you hear a good song on the radio and you decide to write it down on a piece of paper. Or perhaps you're going shopping and you decide to write a shopping list. Well, in a sort of similar way, this is why people started to write thousands of years ago.
In order to manage these cities, to control these early empires, people had to remember vast amounts of information. They had to keep track of the state's harvests, trade, and taxes. How could they remember it all? Archaeologists found hundreds of seals at Uruk and Arslantepe. The pictograms on these seals were the signatures of civil servants. This was the beginning of bureaucracy.
We found thousands of these sealings, so in the public buildings of Fort Millennium we have the proof of a very sophisticated system of control without writing, but they could make a real accountability every year or every administrative period through the sealings. This system started in the Neolithic when people had the need to put their food together in one storeroom. And so there was the need for someone who controlled the movement of this goods.
To control meant knowing how to count. And for millennia, men had counted using small stones. The Sumerians would translate the stones into symbols that could be engraved on clay tablets. The seals and the figures would gradually lead to the birth of a powerful management tool: writing. This invention would change the world.
The amazing thing about writing is it's allowed humans to do something quite special, and that is to record different ideas, events, messages and emotions without having somebody to be physically there to communicate them. Some types of writing have become forgotten over time and can no longer be read. No one knows what's written on these small stone seals. They come from a great ancient civilization that existed about 3,500 years ago in the Indus Valley, in what is now known as India and Pakistan.
5,000 years ago, in Uruk, a new character came onto the scene, the scribe. He was the master of writing. The state had become increasingly powerful. It required many representatives. Topping the list were the collectors of taxes. The scribe was responsible for the accounts, but it was the chief of guards who carried out the crown's decisions. All signs indicate that in the beginning, writing was used for accounting purposes, to record transactions, accumulated riches, paid taxes. It served as a memory and a measure of control for the state. Writing required an ideal medium, something accessible, easy to engrave, inexpensive. They didn't have to look far. Clay was already being used in construction, in pottery. This malleable, all-purpose material was perfect for writing. And if you made a mistake, you could correct it. You only had to erase it and start over. In the early days of writing, drawings and pictograms were used to depict objects. Then, little by little, the drawings were refined to the point where they no longer represented an object, but a sound. Writing moved away from drawing to become phonetic, to blend in more with the spoken word. The Sumerians used a stylus, a wedge-shaped instrument made out of reed, to engrave into clay. The signs used were short, straight lines that began with a wedge. Why this shape? In clay, it's easier to draw straight lines than curves. These lines take different angles and mingle. It looks like an assembly of nails. This is cuneiform writing. Somewhat like agriculture, which had many birthplaces, writing emerged in many places around the planet. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and America. As if, at a certain point in the evolution of society, man needed to write. Through writing, we know more about our ancestors. Accounting reports shed light on their everyday lives, on their possessions, and even on their conflicts. But it would take time, more than 1,000 years, for writing to free itself from its accounting role to really come into its own. Then, writing would be able to tell stories. Writing was also a formidable guardian of knowledge. Writing made it possible to convey knowledge to a great many individuals, which meant teaching it to as many people as possible. Writing would take a long time, thousands of years, to become fully democratized. Between the major urban centers, new nomadic peoples were emerging. Moving in caravans, they began to crisscross the planet, trading goods over thousands of kilometers, unknowingly contributing to the dissemination of knowledge, which would never cease to grow. Thanks to these travelers and the drawing power of large cities, knowledge accumulated. Advancements were made in science, the arts, and technology. The written word would soon become the pillar of human creation, the most powerful means of communication in the universe.